partner ready?
Yep.
My opponent's ready?
Yes, thank you.
Judge ready? Okay. And begin. My partner and I stand firm affirmation of resolve. The United States should no longer pressure Israel to work towards a two-state solution. The two-state solution is, according to New York Times, the establishment of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. Our framework for today's round is the cost-benefit analysis, meaning that the costs of pressuring Israel outweigh the benefits. For my opponents to win, they must prove that a two-state solution is necessary. Our only observation for the round is that we do not have to prove why a two-state solution is bad, but rather why the U.S. should stop pressuring Israel for a two-state solution. Our three contentions affirming the resolution are: the two-state solution can no longer work, the United States pressure is ineffective, and other solutions get pushed out when the two-state solution is solely focused on. Contention 1, a two-state solution can no longer work. This is because both sides demand the impossible. According to Al Monitor, Israelis demands that Palestinians recognize Israel as a state of Jewish people, that Israel gets to keep illegally annexed East Jerusalem and the Jordan Valley, and that the newly formed Palestinian state must be demilitarized. Palestinians demand, however, that the land lost by Jordan during the 1967 war, which includes West Bank and East Jerusalem. The Israelis' demands are unrealistic, and according to Al Jazeera, Palestinians would not and could not accept such a state. Another reason why a two-state solution is impossible is because of the settlements. According to The Guardian, continued settlement expansion swallows up land that would become part of Palestine. Many Palestinians and some Israelis now say the line's already been crossed and the two-state solution is impossible. Privately, many diplomats agree. These settlements have been built since 1967 and are continuing to be built as of February 2017. In order for any two-state solution to ever occur, 600,000 Israelis would have to be forcibly removed. Looking back at history, when another two-state solution that occurred with India and Pakistan, we see a very similar proportion where 15% of the population was removed. The result was millions of people dead. As a result of our current situation, a two-state solution is impossible and could very well lead to the deaths of thousands. Another reason a two-state solution is impossible is, according to Professor Bard, a foreign policy analyst, a two-state solution was never possible for one principal reason. The Palestinians have never been prepared to share any part of the land they claim as their own. Bard concluded that no UN resolution or State Department formula will change this reality, and therefore it's time to acknowledge the two-state idea as presently conceived dead. Contention 2, U.S. pressure is ineffective. According to New York Books, the U.S. contributing $3 billion of aid to Israel and $500 million to Palestine would make it seem that the U.S. possesses considerable leverage, and yet its efforts to broker a peace agreement have been repeatedly frustrated. The pressure we are applying on Israel is ineffective, and there's no reason to continue pressuring for a two-state solution. We have actually seen in the past Palestine refuse to accept statehood. According to the Jerusalem Post, attempts were made in 1937, 47, 2000, as well as 2008, where Palestine neither agreed nor made a counter-proposal in the light of a peace agreement made by Israel. This shows that Israel isn't the only problem, and that pressuring just Israel will do nothing, as Palestine will continue to ignore attempted peace from Israel. According to Amos Yalden, the director of the Institute for National Security Studies, allowing Israel to work with Palestine without pressure from the U.S. would create a window of opportunity. If the U.S. continued to be involved, according to Cato Institute, this could exacerbate the situation, boost terrorism, and lead to the formation of regional coalitions directed against Washington. In order to allow peace to occur within Israel and Palestine, we must stop what we've been doing for more than 30 years in the form of pressuring Israel to move towards a two-state solution. Contention 3, other solutions get pushed out when the two-state solution is solely focused on. Sub-point A, benefits of a one-state solution. According to Ian Papa, a professor of history and director of the European Center for Palestine Studies, the one-state solution is the only just and functional settlement for the conflict. Limiting Israel and Palestine to the two-state solution discourages them from looking at the benefits of other solutions provided. Michael Tarazi from the PLO points out that Israelis and Palestinians share the same aquifers, same highway network, the same electricity grid, and international borders. For those who believe in equality, this is a good thing. Subpoint B, benefits of a regional solution. According to the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, creating two states for two people would not be good for either side. Instead, a regional peace agreement would offer these states a more significant role while still giving Israel and Palestinians a viable and attractive solution. Benefits of a regional solution include opening up new markets, creating economic growth, and new diplomatic relations. Subpoint C, benefits of a three-state solution. According to the Washington Times, the most attractive prospect is to attach the disparate Palestinian communities in the West Bank and Gaza Strip to their neighboring contiguous Arab states, Jordan and Egypt. This is what is known as the three-state solution, according to Huffington Post. A three-state solution would make it so that there is no need for creating a physical connection between the states, saving hundreds of millions for upgrading education, healthcare, and governance. We still stand firm affirmation for the resolution, and we urge you to do the same. Thank you.
All right. All right. Are my opponents ready?
Yes.
And my judge? And last but not least, my partner? Then I shall begin. My partner and I stand in the firmest negation of the resolution. Resolved, the United States should no longer pressure Israel towards a two-state solution. I'll first give a few brief definitions for this resolution. Should used to indicate obligation, duty, or correctness, typically when criticizing someone's actions. Pressure, the use of persuasion, influence, or intimidation to make someone do something. Two-state solution, establish a state for Palestine alongside Israel. 2 states for 2 peoples. Our framework for this round will be utilitarianism, the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. In order for the affirmation to win the round, we must explain how another method is better for both sides of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Our 3 contentions for this debate are 1. U.S. needs to continue pressure. 2nd, two-state solution is the only way to protect Palestinians. And 3rd, other methods would cause turmoil. Contention 1, U.S. needs to continue pressure. Subpoint A, Israel is the last step. This conflict has delayed itself multiple times from being resolved for different reasons. Right now might be one of the best times to resolve it. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas still supports the 2-state and says he's willing to work with Trump to resolve this issue. Recently, Israel has blocked people from entering the country, trying to boycott Israel and advocate for the 2-state solution. The U.S. plays a big role in this as well. The U.S. overall contributes $3.15 billion per year to Israel's military and has never attempted to cut it. Sanctions have been attempted but never implemented. The only action the U.S. has taken recently is the abstaining of the UN Resolution 2334, which still does nothing because it is non-binding and only is a strongly worded resolution towards Israel. At most, the U.S. is just requesting of Israel to move towards a 2-state, not pressuring. In order for U.S. pressure to be effective, the U.S. must follow through on its promises. Subpoint B, impacts of not implementing the 2-state. Many negative effects can occur from not having a 2-state. Settlements could easily continue to develop. Former Secretary of State John Kerry described this settlement situation as, quote, leading towards one state and perpetual occupation of the other, end quote. In 2003, over 8,000 Palestinians were displaced from Gaza. Another impact is the conflicts that occur. In 2014, 2,100 Palestinians, mostly citizens, along with 66 Israeli soldiers, were killed along the Gaza Strip. If the U.S. does not continue to pressure, all of these impacts are likely to continue. Contention 2, two-state solution is the only way to protect Palestinians. Palestinians, after the establishment of Israel, have long struggled for equal rights. 50 different laws discriminate against Palestinians because of their ethnicity, running them second or third-class citizens. Many Palestinians face significant legal obstacles to gain land in Israel. Over 70 Palestinian villages exist. Some of them predating the establishment of Israel are oppressed. They are not given government services, not recognized by the government, and oftentimes not even put on maps. Many other towns that are primarily Palestinian lack basic services and receive significantly less funding than primarily Jewish towns. As of March 2015, Benjamin Netanyahu used racist messages towards Palestinians in order to gain re-election. Even recently, on February 24, 2016, a Human Rights Watch worker was denied a permit from the State of Israel for research, claiming HRW is, quote, propaganda. This shows that Israel does not care for the well-being of the Palestinians. The State Department's goals agree with supporting the Palestinians. If we do not attempt a 2-state, these effects will continue to happen to the Palestinians. Contention 3, other methods would cause turmoil. Out of all the current options to resolve the conflict, the 2-state solution is the best. It has been the most developed, with the first idea dating back to 1937. Many of the newer plans and current ideas don't have the same research and backing as the 2-state. Subpoint A, one-state solution. When it comes to the one-state solution, there are 2 different outcomes: a mixed religious state or a Jewish state. Former Secretary of State John Kerry may have said it best, stating, quote, it can be Jewish or it can be democratic. Kerry was referring to the possibility of an apartheid of the Palestinians. The issue is, if Israel chooses to be democratic, it no longer becomes the, quote, Jewish state. Another big issue is language. According to a 2011 survey done by the Israeli Central Bureau of Statistics, only 18% of Israel's population speaks Arabic. Also, according to the survey, only 60% of Palestinians living in Israel have a good understanding of Hebrew. If neither of them can communicate with each other, then we cannot expect them to live in a state together. Subpoint B, regional solution. The regional solution can oftentimes seem even more challenging. A regional solution calls for Israel to give up land that they have claimed from Egypt and Jordan to create the Arab state. The issue is Jordan and Egypt likely will not comply with Israel giving up their land to the Palestinians. This solution is unlikely to happen if the other countries are not willing to comply. For those reasons, we urge a negative ballot. Thank you.
Ready for cross-examination?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, would you like the first question or may I?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so what is the point in actually pushing for a 2-state solution when we see that it's completely impossible at this point anyway?
Well, we can see that the point of pushing for the 2-state solution is that no other solution possible, such as the solutions you suggested, they number one, those have a significant cost to them, both for the United States and for Israel and Palestine. And number two, they do not have the same amount of funding or the same amount of research. So we would be better off
So
supporting.
why can't we just put more research towards these other possible solutions? You're saying we don't have much research towards them. Why is it negative to not put more research towards them?
While we may be able to put more funding or more research towards those solutions, if we want this issue, if we want this conflict to be resolved quickly or in the shortest amount of time, we have to look to the two-state solution simply because that solution has the most.
40 years now?
Well, as we've seen from our first contention, we actually haven't been pressuring. We've been giving very strongly worded resolutions such as UN Resolution 2334, but we haven't really done anything to actually pressure. We have stated you should do this. We have given very strongly worded resolutions, but we have not actually done anything to pressure the Israelis into this solution.
We have pressured them. We have pressured them in ways such as money, where we have withheld funding from them because they wouldn't do anything, and eventually decided that it's not worth withholding funding because they're going to be overtaken by terrorist groups. We have pressured them, but we see that it does nothing when we have pressured them in the past. But in fact, with the resolution that you keep on mentioning, 2334, we see that it's a complete change of tides, where we see that we are no longer going to be backing Israel completely, and that was the real pressure here that you're completely ignoring. The resolution itself may not affect things, however, the rhetoric behind it is the importance that the U.S. will no longer be supporting Israel if they continue the way they are, and Israel, all they did is they continue to go against what we've been asking for. So we're seeing that no matter what kind of pressure, until we get to the point of forcing them with troops, foreign troops, that's about the only point, and when we force them to go into a two-state solution, that we could ever see them working towards it.
All right, may I have a question?
Go ahead.
All right, so, okay, first off, can you give me the tagline for your contention 3 subpoint B?
3 subpoint B was, contention 3 was that other solutions got pushed out when we focus only on the two-state solution, and our subpoint B was the regional solution.
Okay, so can you explain the regional solution a bit more in depth?
Okay, so the regional solution, is essentially saying that we're not going to create two separate states. Instead, we're going to have a regional divide between the two people. So neither of them are necessarily a state. It's going to remain similar to how it is now. However, there will be differences in things such as agreements, such as ceasefires and whatnot. So they'll be separate, but they won't necessarily be states, which will solve for a lot of problems such as the regional borders and whatnot.
Thank you.
Everyone ready?
Yep. Yes.
Right, then I will begin. So just very quickly going over my opponent's, hang on, sorry, I just messed up a little bit. And begin. So quickly going over my opponent's framework, the framework of utilitarianism, we're going to look at, first of all, our framework is going to look at this as well with cost-benefit analysis, as we're going to weigh the impacts to the majority of people, as well as other essential impacts such as economic, and as well as the lives of the people in these countries and all the countries involved. So we're going to see that this framework is actually going to fall under ours, and we're going to look at the cost-benefit analysis framework throughout this round. Move on to the first contention, where they say the U.S. needs to continue pressure. Subpoint A, Israel is the last step. So we see that the U.S. has pressured Israel for over 40 years now, and nothing has occurred as a result. Note that the resolution is about whether or not pressure should be continued and not increased. So we're not debating about how we should be increasing pressure. The resolution states that we have been pressuring. That's what it states. It says that we should no longer pressure, which would mean we have been pressuring. So any of my opponent says otherwise to this would again be against the resolution and be against what we're debating here, and there would be no point debating in this room. We're also going to see that Israel itself has actually tried to make fair deals in the past with Palestine. We see both in 1998, 1947, 1937, 2000, and most recently in 2008, where Palestine neither agreed nor made a counterproposal to a deal that offered 94% of the land back, with the rest being taken care of with land swaps. So we're going to see this is a big factor in this, and the fact that they brought the deal to the table to Palestine, and Palestine simply has not wanted it. We also see, again, we talked about infeasibility, which I'm going to go back over with my first contention. We move on to their subpoint B, impacts of not implementing the two-state solution. First of all, we see the first that a two-state solution cannot occur because first, the demands are unrealistic as, again, the Israelis demand Palestinians recognize Israel as a state of the Jewish people, they keep illegally annexed East Jerusalem and the Jordan Valley, and a newly formed Palestinian state must be demilitarized, where Palestinians demand the land lost by Jordan during the 1967 war. This directly conflicts with what the Israelis want. So these two sides want different things, and the things that they want literally conflict with each other. So this cannot happen. First of all, with that, we look secondly, the continued settlements that have occurred. Again, my opponents talked about a deal that happened in January, but what we've seen is, again, Israel is still building these settlements, and the UN has did nothing about this. In February, they started ground for new settlements. So we're going to see that, again, nothing is going to happen as a result, and these continued settlements with our guardian card states that the line has already been crossed. And three, we see the deaths that can occur as a result of this. We're going to look to the example of India and Pakistan, where this exact same scenario happened, and people were forcibly removed. Indians were forcibly removed, and it led to millions of deaths. The same proportions happen here, and it would lead to thousands of deaths in the current situation. We also looked at the fact with our Professor Bard card where he states, no UN resolution or State Department formula will change the reality, and therefore it is time to acknowledge the two-state idea as presently conceived dead. So we're going to see this whole idea and concept of a two-state solution is dead. We looked at their second contention, a two-state solution is the only way to protect the Palestinians. Again, we showed three other solutions that we haven't looked at, and that's a big factor. My opponents talked about the likelihood of them working. We haven't even looked at them because we've been focused on this two-state solution for so long. We show benefits with all the other solutions that we provide. A one-state solution building trust on both sides and equal rights for all. A regional solution building diplomatic and economic foundations within that region, as well as with our three-state solution, where we show that they are able to not only have more, allow all sides to maintain their own national identities, but as well as upgrade, saving hundreds for millions, or upgrading education, healthcare, and governance. We look to their third contention, where other methods would cause turmoil. Again, their subpoint A, one-state solution, so they literally counter and talk about the likelihood. They use that word a lot. Again, we have not looked at this solution because we've never been able to implement it because we've been focused on this two-state solution. We show with our evidence, however, that it actually is beneficial. Where we show that with the CUNY City College, he says that it would be the end of occupation and extension of the oppression of the Palestinian population. We looked at their subpoint B about the regional solution. Again, this is where they use the word likelihood a lot. And we're going to see that the regional solution does provide lots of benefits. And we also looked at the three-state solution, which we have, again, presented benefits of that. We looked to our own contentions. Our first contention, the two-state solution can no longer work. We've shown a lot of this. Second contention, United States pressure is ineffective. Again, we've shown nothing's been happening with the pressure. And third, other solutions, again, talked a lot of this, one state, two state, and three state, all of them are beneficial. For these reasons, we urge you to vote in affirmation. Thank you.
Are my opponents ready?
Yes.
Judge ready? Partner ready?
Yes, thank you.
Then I will begin. All right, so I'm going to start over with my opponent's third contention of the other solutions that are talked about. First contention, so their subpoint A was one-state solution. I'd like to go over the fact that when we talk about one-state solution, we are referring to the fact that there's two options with the one state. They can either go into a democratic state in which both parties are recognized, or second, an apartheid state where the Jewish is oppressing the Palestinians. Now, obviously, we wouldn't want the second one, but here's the issue with the first one. When we look at Israel itself, it is the Jewish state. It is the place where Judaism can live and not be oppressed by other cultures or other people. That is why Israel was originally created. And we see that if this was actually affected, or if the one state was actually implemented in this democratic way that my opponents are talking about, it would completely disregard Israel's right of being its own religious state. Now, going over their subpoint B of the regional solution, the issue with the regional solution is in order for this to work, they would need to take land from both Egypt and Jordan in order to have this neutral zone that we would want, because there's other Palestinians in those countries that need to be recognized and added to this regional solution. This is going to cause even more turmoil, considering that the King of Jordan and Egypt's government itself would not support giving up land in order to benefit Israel, who they have had conflicts with in the 7 Days War and the first Arab-Israeli War. They do not want something like that to occur. And going over their subpoint C, with the three-state solution, the three-state solution would directly affect it because it would make Gaza its own independent country. We see that with Hamas being over Gaza itself, this makes it even more of a danger because this allows Hamas to have more of an ability to attack Israel itself. This is a danger. We cannot allow Hamas to gain its own sovereignty in order to gain power and be able to attack Israel. Now, going over my opponent's first contention of the two-state can no longer work, that's the issue. We haven't seen any other solution be able to work, and I just disproved all of my opponent's solutions that they have brought up. Things like the three-state, the regional, the one-state, they all have flaws worse than the two-state that have occurred. The only reason the two-state has not worked is because Israel is being too aggressive with its land grabs. If we were to make Israel to a point where it could be considered either like an international city or a city watched under both governments as a protection of its religious sites, then this would be a lot more peaceful. The two-state solution is still not out of reach. Secondly, the U.S. pressure is ineffective. When we look at the fact that it hasn't touched that Palestine is not willing to comply, we have to look at the fact that, firstly, Israel has been making bad deals that the Palestinians would not agree with, and secondly, this isn't out of reach that Palestinians would not be willing to work. On February 27, 2017, Mohammed Abbas said he would be willing to work with Trump and Israel in order to try and create a two-state solution still. The president of Israel right now, the leader of, Palestine right now, is still willing to actually try and make this solution work. This shows that U.S. pressure is still working and that we should still pressure Israel because they are the only step from having us reach this two-state solution that we want. Now, going over my own contentions, for the first one, U.S. needs to continue pressure. As we mentioned, Israel is the last step. They're the only people blocking us from having this two-state solution because they are not willing to go to the deal table with Mohammed Abbas. And on the subpoint B, the impacts, as we mentioned, the 8,000 Palestinians were displaced from Gaza in 2003. 2,100 Palestinians, mostly citizens, were killed along the Gaza Strip. This conflict keeps happening because of this two-state solution, and for these reasons, I urge a firm negative ballot. Thank you. Is my opponent ready for cross?
Yes. Would you like the first question?
You can have it.
Okay, so why should a Palestinian state be enacted when, first of all, they rejected a deal with everything they wanted in 2008, and secondly, with the Palestinian Authority, with the current Palestinian government, they provide serious abuses, including arbitrary arrest, incommunicado detention, torture, and unfair trial, as well as Palestinians seeing 95.5% of them believing the Palestinian Authority is corrupt.
So, for the 2008 card you mentioned, did it have it where Jerusalem would be equal ground for both sides?
Yeah, so it actually established literally everything. 94% of the land that Israel wanted, plus land swaps with whatever other land where current residents are, and they wouldn't want to have to move people around. So it literally gave Palestine everything they wanted. However, not only did they not come up with a reason for not wanting it, but they said, in quote, they neither agreed nor made a counter proposal. They literally just ignored this amazing deal. So why on earth, along with this other information about how the Palestinian Authority, which would most likely take over as the government, as Palestine, is corrupt, why on earth should we establish a Palestinian
issue is
state?
There's no specific detail on why. You mentioned that it had everything that the Palestinians wanted, but there's no specific details on why they wouldn't want it, though.
Well, no, but that's the fact, though. That's why I'm saying it's interesting that in 2008, they neither agreed nor made a counter proposal. That's the most significant thing, because that showed they didn't want a state then, and now we're in a place where a state isn't possible, as we showed with all the evidence we have. Plus, we look at the Palestinian Authority, which would become the acting government, and we're seeing, I talked about arbitrary arrest and, incommunicado detention, torture, unfair trials, as well as 95.5% of Palestinians believing there's corruption in that government. So again, why should a Palestinian state be established? You literally said, there's no reason. It doesn't make sense that they didn't take the deal. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Why should we establish a state now?
Well, partially, are you asking why we shouldn't establish a two-state, or why we shouldn't establish a Palestinian
No,
state?
yeah, why should we establish a Palestinian state when because I literally showed you, do you have any counters against that whole thing that happened in 2008, as well as all the corruption and different things that are occurring?
Well, just look at the Palestinian
Authority?
oppression from the people of Israel. As we mentioned, over the 70 Palestinians.
But is it any different than the things they're getting from their own government, the government that's supposed to represent them? Where, I'm going to bring up arbitrary arrest, incommunicado detention, torture, unfair trials, as well as 95.5% of them believe there's corruption within the Palestinian Authority. So we replace this government, we give Palestine their own state, and they all of a sudden have a corrupt government. So why would it be better to replace or to have the Palestinians have their own state when their government that would become the functioning government is corrupt itself, just as corrupt and is just unfair with rights as Israel?
Is this the Palestinian people that are having these things happen to them?
Yes,
such
the
as
Palestinian people from the Palestinian Authority. It says Palestinians face serious abuses, including arbitrary arrest, incommunicado detention, torture, and unfair trials, as well as 95.5% of them believing there's corruption. There is corruption within the government of Palestine.
From the PA.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Not enough room here. Okay, as a brief off-time roadmap, I'm first going to go over clarifications about this resolution, and then I'll go over my opponent's case, and if time permits, going over my own. Is my partner ready?
Yeah.
My opponents?
Yes,
My
thank you.
judge? Okay. And begin. So first, let's repeat what this resolution is. The resolution is resolved: the United States should no longer pressure Israel to work towards a two-state solution. So this shows a couple of very important facts. First of all, we do not have to come up with an alternative. That is called a counterplan, which our opponents are telling us we need to come up with a counterplan, essentially, which is against public forum rules. We don't have to come up with a counterplan. We don't need to come up with an alternative. In fact, what our alternatives are showing in our third contention is exactly a point that they were bringing up earlier, that we don't have enough research. We're trying to prove with our third contention that there's not enough research to prove that these other solutions aren't quite as good. We're saying that we focus too much on the two-state solution when there's other valid solutions we could take that are being completely ignored at this point. Moving on. So, for more clarification, the situation, they're currently within a one-state solution. They are sharing all the same infrastructure, all the same bodies, everything. We're essentially in a one-state solution right now, and it would be ridiculous to try to split into a two-state solution, because that would be releasing so many different forms of infrastructure, that would be trying to separate so many people into different groups, and it would be unrealistic for all the points we brought up once again in our first contention. Now bringing back to our first contention, they said that there's no other solutions that are just as good, but that just comes back to the point that they said themselves there's not enough research to show if there are other valid alternatives, and even then, even if this is the best one, that doesn't mean we should focus on it, because if it's impossible, then it's pointless to focus on it, which they have failed to prove otherwise. We've seen the two groups giving each other exactly what they want and rejecting for no flat reason. We also see with the two-state solution, with their second contention, they're talking about how the two-state solution is the only way to protect Palestinians. However, that's not true. Once again, coming back to the card, saying that Palestinians face serious abuses in the Hamas criminal justice system, including arbitrary arrest, incommunicado detention, torture, and unfair trials, as long as 95.5% of Palestinians believing that the authority of Abbas is corrupt. We're saying that we're not going to be protecting them, and so for these reasons that see here, we must stand on on affirmation. Thank you. Come on to the speech.
3 minutes. All right. Hey, can we use 30 seconds of prep time?
Yeah, starting now.
Alright, is my opponent ready? Or are my opponents ready?
Yes.
And my judge? And last but not least, my partner? Alright, as a brief off-time roadmap, I will go over the arguments that the affirmation is presented, and then if time, I'll also go over the negations points. Alright, so when we look at what the affirmation's been stating, we've been looking at the fact that they talked about the affirmation doesn't need a counterplan, that they were talking about their own third contention, that their third contention, their other solutions, such as the one state or the regional solution, or the third state or the three-state solution, that they don't have enough research. And this is exactly why we need to focus on the two-state solution. We have to focus on the two-state solution simply because of the harms and the flaws and the disadvantages that these other solutions hold. You can look to our third contention when it's talking about the one-state solution. We have to look to the fact that there are two options with the one-state solution. Either one, it's a democratic state, which means that it is no longer the Jewish state, or it is an apartheid state. And neither one of those is going to be good for either Israel or for Palestine. So we can see that the one-state solution isn't going to work. We don't need to put any more research in that because we know it will not work. on the regional solution. We can also look to the fact that the regional solution is calling for Israel to give up land that they have claimed from Egypt and Jordan to create the Arab state, which means that Egypt and Jordan are not going to be okay with this solution. And if anything, it is going to create more turmoil, which means we can't go with the regional solution. And the three-state solution, what's that going to do, making Gaza its own country, is that is allowing Hamas even more ability to attack Israel and legitimizing its terrorization of people, because we can see that Hamas is first and foremost a terrorist organization. It is not the ruling government body. It is not a ruling government body. It is not in any legitimate source of power. It is a terrorist organization, which means that when the affirmation brings up all of their statistics about Palestinians facing crime and corruption due to Hamas, this should be discounted simply for the fact that Hamas is a terrorist organization, not a government, which means that the three-state solution also cannot work, which means the only solution left is the two-state solution. And my opponent stated that even if it is the best, it's not possible. It is not impossible. We have clearly shown how it is not impossible. We have clearly shown the fact that the two-state solution is the only way to protect the Palestinians. When we look at the fact that there are 50 different laws discriminating against Palestinians because of their ethnicity, rendering them to second or third-class citizens, we can see that the two-state is the only option. Thank you.
Are my opponents ready for Grand Cross?
Yeah. Can I ask the first question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so why should we have a two-state solution when, first of all, it would lead to, according to Al Monitor, possible violent uprising, as well as costing Israel $250 billion and Palestine $46 billion?
How would it lead to a possible violent uprising?
So again, establishing this two-state solution, again, we're going to have forcible removals, all these different factors. The point is this card shows that if
could they
this
not just do
two-state
land
solution-
swaps like already proposed?
So again, so we talked about this, but this is saying if a two-state solution, however we go about it, if it's established, it's going to lead to a violent uprising. And that's going to cost Israel $250 billion, Palestine $46 billion, as well as the countless thousands, millions of lives that would be lost in this conflict. So why on earth should we establish this two-state solution?
Okay, well, when you look at the fact that there are, again, 50 different laws discriminating against Palestinians simply because of their ethnicity.
Yeah, but we look
that
back
is
at discrimination and we
absolute-
show that the Palestinian Authority does that same thing. So how's
the
that a factor?
What Palestinian Authority are you referring to?
The only Palestinian Authority that there is. The Palestinian
What
Authority
Palestinian
is the
Authority?
government
Name
of...
the Palestinian Authority.
That's the name of the organization.
In a two-state solution, the only group that could take the Palestinians is the Palestinian Authority of Hamas. While they may be a terrorist organization, they are the only organized Palestinian
So
group.
The PA of Hamas is different than the actual...
not Hamas. Not Hamas. So the PA in general, like I'm sure my opponents are aware of what the Palestinian Authority is. That would be the functioning government of Palestine, if a two-state solution were to occur. And
Are
again,
you talking about... Excuse me, real quick. Are you talking about the PA of... Are you talking about the PA
There's only
of
one
Gaza
PA.
or the PA of the West Bank?
There's the Palestinian Authority with the president. I read the president's name. I think it was President Mohammed
Abbas, yes.
Mohammed Abbas. That's what we're talking about. We showed 95.5% of Palestinians seeing that government as corrupt, as well as showing, again, incommunicado detention, unfair trials, all these different things. The thing that we've been talking about, what's happening in Israel, on top of that, and then let me ask you a question in that fact. We've been doing this pressure for these 40 years. That's the status quo. The pressure is the status quo. What has happened as a result of pressure? We've been pressuring for this, and all these human rights things have been occurring, all these issues. Why has nothing changed if we had all this pressure for 40 years?
Because we haven't been pressuring in the idea that, firstly, leadership has changed a lot. So as soon as we've tried to pressure somebody else, leadership has immediately changed and new opinions have come in. And secondly, when we look towards the fact of actual pressuring, the U.S. has done hardly anything but their military
but again,
benefits.
we're not arguing about whether or not we're increasing pressure. We're talking about the status quo. This is what happens in public forum debate. We argue the status quo and the fact that we're arguing about whether or not they should no longer pressure Israel. So the pressure that they are already having on Israel, whether or not we should continue that. And again, why should we be doing that when all these issues, your whole case, you present all these issues that's been happening, but we literally show you the fact that this has been happening under the neg world. This all happens in the neg world, so why should we continue?
Because under the affirmation world, the costs and the harms and the disadvantages are going to be even worse. Because we have to take the lesser of two evils.
I have not used any prep time, so I will use my 2 minutes starting now.
That's 2 minutes.
Awesome. Everyone ready?
Yes, thank you.
So just as a brief off-time roadmap, I'm going to be going over voters of the round or why we feel we won this debate. And begin. Our first voter for the round is framework. So we showed our opponent's framework of utilitarianism and how it actually is going to go under our framework of cost-benefit analysis. We're going to look at all of the costs and benefits in this round. We're going to look specifically with impacts of lives. With the first of all, we show in our first speech where we directly use the Cato Institute card, where it stated that continued U.S. pressure would exacerbate the situation, boost terrorism, and lead to the formation of regional coalitions directed against Washington. This is the only card in this whole entire round that directly says what happens if the U.S. continues pressure. It's the only card in this round that shows the result of this resolution. So we're going to see it's boosting terrorism, it's making the situation worse, and leading to coalitions against Washington. So this is where we're going to see impact of lives, terrorism, increased deaths. All these different impacts are happening as a direct effect of continued pressure. This was not negated in the round. This will flow through. Then we show, first of all, in Grand Cross, where we show evidence of a violent uprising that's occurring with our Guardian card, and that would lose thousands of lives as well. We're seeing lots of impacts of lives there too. My opponents have not shown any impacts of lives other than talking about human rights abuses. But again, we show that first of all, the Palestinian Authority, which would take over as the government of Palestine in a two-state solution, they're just as bad. And second of all, we show to get to that point, we would have to lose so many lives, it's no longer worth it. Then we show the fact that the removal of 600,000 Israelis, which would be necessary, and again, we relate this to India, where the same situation happened with the same percentages of population. Millions of people died there, thousands of people will die in this scenario. So again, these impacts of lives are overwhelmingly favoring our side, and we're showing again that if you vote for neg, you're voting for loss of life. We also see economic cost, where we show $250 billion cost to Israel and $46 billion cost to Palestine. This we're also not negated in this round. Our second vote for the round is the status quo. So first of all, we're showing that this resolution, the status quo, is the current world that we live in now. So anything my opponents have said about all the issues with today's, like what's happening now, that's what my opponents have. Because again, this resolution is not about whether or not it's a two-state solution, but it's continued pressure for a two-state solution. So again, the only thing changing in this round is the affirmation where we stop this U.S. pressure, we stop the terrorism, or any of these other issues that we've shown that can happen, and we stop going for a plan that hasn't worked. We looked at the fact also with the flow that my opponents have not addressed our three-solution plan. For these reasons, we urge you to vote, three-state solution. For these reasons, we urge you to vote in affirmation. Thank you.
I'll use my last 130. All right, stop time. Opponents ready?
Yep.
Judge ready? Partner ready?
Yes, thank you.
All right. As a brief off-time roadmap, I will be going over some voters of the round, why I believe our case won, and why I believe our opponent's case falls. Now I'm going to start firstly with the overall case, with my opponent's case overall. Now we look towards their third contention when they talk about the different solutions, and we have to see that obviously the two-state solution wins out in this. The one state does not hold because of the issues that it would have with the Israelis in their own state. The regional does not hold because of the fact it would need to take land from both Jordan and Egypt. And the three-state does not hold because you would be allowing Hamas to be its own sovereign nation and be able to gain ground because of that. Now when we look to that, we need to see that we need to keep pressure because the two-state solution is the only solution that would work. Keeping with the status quo isn't an option either, because when we look in the fact of our subpoint B of impacts, with the 8,000 Palestinians that were displaced from Gaza in 2003 and the 2,100 Palestinians that were killed in 2014, we see that there's still a lot of conflict going on over the decades, and we cannot allow for this to continue to occur. So that's why the two-state is still the only solution. And even if my opponents keep mentioning the whole idea of the fact that two-state that the US pressure doesn't work. The fact is we still haven't done very good pressure. As we've mentioned multiple times, we still give $3.15 billion a year to Israel, and it hasn't done anything to persuade them to the two-state solution. We need to try something different. Although the resolution looks to whether we should still pressure, that doesn't mean we can't disregard the factors of that pressure. And now, finally going over the frameworks, we need to look towards a utilitarianism, because a utilitarianism supports the Palestinians better than it does with the cost-benefit analysis. The cost-ben just looks at the good and the bad, while the util actually takes in factors of both sides. And finally, we need to look at the fact that that we still have reason to show that without the two-state, conflict will still occur because of Hamas and these other issues. And for these reasons, I urge a firm negative ballot. Thank you.
Good debate.
Thanks.